Creating new classes, races, and genders can be done in DA underscore lobby setup. This is a data asset found in character, blueprints, lobby, and class setups. So you go ahead and open that up. We have two sections here. So we have the race setup and the class list. So the class set right here, we have class one for the time being. We only have like 5 examples here. We can add more. We'll do that in a second. But mainly here, to create new classes, you want to do it in this classes section. You can add more, but if you only need these right here, you can modify them. So this would be the name. So these, whatever you add here, will automatically be detected in the lobby widget. So the class name here, we have the class type, which is a gameplay tag. And so later we'll see how to add more by just simply adding a new tag. And of course, you give it a description. All this just shows in the widget, the lobby widget. So class initial stats. We'll talk about stats later, but this is where you would indicate your stats. So you don't have to add these manually here. When we create a new class, we'll just duplicate an existing class and simply modify existing stats. For the time being, we have 23 stats. And like I said, we'll talk about stats later, but this is where you would indicate your default stats. You wouldn't do it in the character itself. You'll need to do it here. So it just makes it easier, do everything, modify everything in one place. So health, for example, we have 1500 as the main value, and this will be the max health. And the same for, let's say, strength, right? So you would start with 10 as your default strength, for example, for this specific class. So class one could be, yeah, you could change this to warrior, for example. But for our example here, we just have it as class one, class two. So yeah, so let's go ahead and actually, now before we create a new class, let's see race and race setup right here. So race setup, same thing. If you need more, just click here, add new. We'll do that in a second. So if we expand that, same deal, race one, tag is set to race one, whereas the race two is set to race two. And yeah, same thing here, just a name, a description. You can indicate limit to classes. So for example, if you only need certain classes to have access to, or like if you need this specific race to only have access to certain classes, you would do it here. So you would just go limit to classes, and you could just do class right here, and you can like indicate what classes this race has access to. So for example, this race could only have like these 3 classes, for example. So that's how you do it, just by selecting the tags, class tags. The character class by gender, this is where you would indicate the specific class to spawn with. So here, if we go to the character blueprints, and that would be in character blueprints, and this is like the base character. This is not the character that you spawn with. This is just the parent character that has all the logic. But the childs or the classes that you actually spawn with are here, character races. So you have like race one, it has 2 child. So if we have like a gender 3, then we'll just duplicate this one right here, customize the mesh. So this is where you would like specifically customize the class based on race and gender. And you would like, for example, change the mesh, change the NMBP, maybe like add like a different model and things like that. So essentially this child class. So in child classes, you would only like change things that are visual, but you could also like expand the logic if you need to. But yeah, this is the class child class that you would indicate here. So since the first index here is like race one, so if you are race one, gender one, then you would spawn with this one right here. So this is race one, gender one, and of course the rest is the same. So if you're class race one, gender two, you would then spawn with this one, etc., etc. So we'll see that in a bit when we create a new race, gender, and class. So let's go ahead and actually do that. But before we do that, so if you go and play, go to play, create new. So from that data asset, this will automatically detect all your classes. So currently we only have 5. We only have like 5 races as well and 2 genders. And of course, this preview is updated from the same data asset, and that would be under lobby preview. Okay. So this mesh right here is what you see on the lobby screen. So like when you cycle through classes, this right here, this model, and based on race, gender, and class, Well, not class, just gender, right? Yeah. So what you see here is based on gender and race. That would be controlled in here. So same thing. So this right here is what you spawn with the class, the child class. This would be the main character that you spawn with. The character has the logic, the skills, the fighting, etc. But this right here, the lobby preview section is what you see in the lobby when you cycle through classes. So this doesn't have to be like crazy. It's just simply it's a simple skeletal mesh and an idle pose. So that's where you would simply indicate what you would see. Right. So let's go ahead and actually create a new class, race, gender, things like that. I think it's the best way to demonstrate how it works. So let's say we need a new class. All right. So we're gonna go ahead and do plus right here. And obviously we're not gonna fill everything manually. What we're gonna do here is we're gonna copy an existing class. Let's say right here, copy, then paste that. And then now we can customize. So doing that means that we copy the stats. We don't have to enter them manually. But you could say, for example, this class number 6. It doesn't obviously the name doesn't really have to be class 6 class 1. We could actually do like I don't know YouTube for example. That would be a class. Why not? So right here you need to indicate the class type, which is a gameplay tag. So currently we have characteristics, class 1. So we don't have a class 6. So we'll go under class and then we'll click on the add sub tag and that would automatically add it right here. Or you could also like do it from here. But you would have to type it manually, but this one is just easier. Okay, so once again, class, that would be the parent category. And then you would click add subtag. It will automatically fill it here. And then you would have to type in your class. It doesn't have to be class 6, but to keep it simple, we'll simply say that's class 6. All right, so it gets automatically added right here. So we create a new tag, and then we'll have to assign it here. Then we can give it a description. You just do 1, 2, 3 there. And initial stats. So this is where you would indicate your starting stats. So let's say this required experience. This is actually not used. I think the required experience is using the curve right here. So this is where you would indicate your experience. So this is let's say at level 2 right here, you would need 100 experience to get to level 2. And then you don't I mean you could indicate like each level, but usually you just want to do like some sort of curve. So from level 2 to level 75, you would require 6,000 XP and it will have it as linear. But you could customize it like here, for example. You could select all of them and let's say you want to be auto or like user or auto or whatever you want. So it's just like any curve. So yeah, so that's where you would do the experience per level. But here mainly we're interested in stats. So let's say that this class is like I don't know some sort of warrior. It would have like a lot of strength. So let's say it starts by default with a lot of health. Let's say 3,000. All right, so this right here value is like the value, the current value, and this would be the max value. So for health, you would also indicate max value. But for strength, you only care about, or this would be mana, so we'll leave it at 200 for now. But for strength, you only care about value. You could like say, yeah, this is some sort of warrior. Let's have him start at 30, etc. etc. We'll see later how to add new stats. But for the time being, this is where you would indicate your stats. So let's say you add a new stat later, you'll need to come here and add it right here. So class initial stats, and we'll add the new stat right here. You just give it the tag and the value. It would have to do it for all of them. So that's all we need right here. Um, Now, if we go and play right now, just hit play and then create new, you can see our class right there, YouTube, right? And you can see description 1, 2, 3. So everything is controlled from the data asset. Just in one place, you can modify everything. And same process for a new, let's say we need a new race. Okay, so you just double click here. Once again, I'm just gonna copy, paste, race. I'm gonna call it YouTube race. So I'm going to call it YouTube race. And we don't have a sixth race, so we'll have to do the same thing here. We have under the race tag, we only have 5. So we'll have to click on add sub tag and do a race 6. And that would be our race 6. You can give it a description as well here, but we're not going to do that right now because it's pretty straightforward. So here, mainly the character that you would spawn with. Okay, so let's say that this race has a different mesh. So you would go to character here. So character, blueprints, character races. So we'll do a new folder, race 6. And you could simply like select both of these and just drag them over race 6, do copy, not move. So copy. Then I would rename them here to let's say race 6, gender 1, and then race 6, gender 2. Then you would open them here, just like any blueprints, and you can like customize the mesh, the modular mesh here. So if you have like some sort of other mesh here, you would do it there. Go to details panel, and you would also change the anim BP if it needs another anim BP. But yeah, this is mainly visually speaking. And you could also like you have the blueprint here. Feel free to override any behavior. Just don't forget to call the parent implementation. So let's say if you want to override event possessed, make sure you right click it, add call to parent. So because without this, you would be overriding the parent logic, and then you prevent it. If you need to override any other function, you can also like do add override function. Let's say you want to change the behavior of a certain skill or certain behavior. Let's say I don't know if you want to get guild, for example, you could like override that like so. But for the time, we're going to go ahead and do. We could just add the call right here. Right, but mainly when it comes to child classes, it's mainly like what you want to change is the look, like the mesh and the anim BP if you need, or materials and things like that. Right. So we created our child classes here. So all we need to do here is just go here, race 6. So we're gonna be select that right there and then just assign it right here. So now we have for gender 1, we have this right here, race 6, gender 1, and then for gender 2, we have this right here. Yeah. So then you would spawn with this one. And of course, for the lobby preview, this is what you would see in the lobby. So we're going to change this right here. So instead of race 1, it's going to be race 6. Like like so. And then you customize the meshes based on gender. So if it's gender 1, you would like maybe show the Manny. If not, Quinn. And of course, you would indicate an idle pose. So this is just mainly for the lobby, which you see in the lobby. But for the playable character, that would be this child class right here. And for genders, it's pretty much the same thing. Let's say you want to add a new gender. All you got to do here is just go to mesh by gender. Well, at first you would go here, and you would have to do it for all of them because obviously it's a new, it's a complete a new gender. So they will for race 1, for example, you would also have to do it there. But for the time being, we're just going to be doing it for this one right here. So class, I will add a new one here, and I will call this gender. Well, since we don't have gender 3, then we'll have to do gender here, add a subtag gender 3. There you go. So now we create a gender 3, and let's say for gender 3, you would go here and duplicate this one right here, like that. So race 6, gender 3, then I would have to indicate that here, like so. So now I will spawn with this class if I'm gender 3, race 6. Um, yeah, and then finally just a preview here. So do it like that, and then just do gender 3 like that, and then you would like select a different gender. Or if it's the same thing with everything here, you can just select the same mesh. It doesn't matter. Yeah, so that's pretty much how you would create new classes, new genders, races. It's all in one data asset, and it's all about just adding a new tag and just setting the same thing. Like it's just take these existing settings as a reference and just do the same thing. So now when it comes to testing in editor, like you could either load your custom character from the lobby, which is the default behavior. You could also go to the player controller, so ERPG player controller right here, then select the inventory component. And you can also specify your default player class, player race, and player gender. So these would be just when you hit play, you would spawn with those. Like, let's say you want to test your new class, do that, and then you would spawn with your new class. Later, we'll see how to assign a new skill tree to your new class. So that would be in the skills and skill tree later on in this video. But for the time being, we're going to move on to how to create a new pickup. So now we're going to be looking at how to create a new pickup and equipment. For inventory items, you can find them in inventory system folder and then DA inventory items. Right here, they're organized by category, so weapons, armor, jewelry, special, other, and crafting resources. Creating new items is pretty straightforward. So let's say you want to add a new weapon, you can just simply click here and we can give it an ID, for example, new sword, required level. So make sure the item ID is different. Okay. So like you don't want to have the same item ID be like duplicated elsewhere. So like to keep every pickup unique, make sure to give them like a specific item ID. So let's say this one is a new sword, required level, let's say level 1. This one right here, you don't have to fill. This is filled automatically. So ignore it for now. So actor class, so we need to create a new actor class, the one that that you see in the world. So when you drop it or things like that, that would be the pickup that you see in the world. So we could just go and look for, like, let's say Omega Sword. So we want to go for Blueprint class. So we have two here. So there are two classes that we need to create. One is the right here. So if I open that, that inherits from main pickup class. So that would be the item that you see just laying around in the world, right? Like you go like here and you just pick it up with F. It gets added to your inventory, right? And then the item that you see here equipped, that would be the BP main pickup. That's where you would add like extra things such as particle effects like we have here with the electricity particle effects and things like that. And that would also be like where you would customize it. But so for pickups here, it depends on if your weapon or whatever pickup is a skeletal mesh or a static mesh. If it's a skeletal mesh, you can just duplicate any of these weapons or armor right here. They all just inherit from the same parent. So for example, this two-handed sword inherits from main pickup class. But if you need a static mesh, you need to inherit from main pickup class underscore SM. Let's say you need a static mesh pickup, you could just go to armor and you could duplicate like BP armor, right? Like that inherits from SM. We'll do that later. For the time being, we're trying to create a new sword. So I'm simply going to go to pickups weapons and simply duplicate this weapon right here. So let's say that this is Omega sword number 2. And essentially what you want to do here is you want to select the pickup component and then indicate the item ID. So right here we have as new sword. So you want to put it right there. And then here you want to indicate the category. So right here we have the weapons category, the armor, jewelry, special, and other, etc. So these right here. So what we need to do is, since we added it to the weapons category right here, so then we need to indicate the weapons category right here. It's already indicated, but essentially you could just go to inventory category and then you can select the category tag, right? So if you added to armor, that would be armor. For the time being, we added it to weapons, so then we need to select weapons. Randomize stats. So obviously, if you find this item in the world, it might come with random stats. Okay. So when it comes to random stats, now for stats, we have two settings: random stats and item stats. So item stats is used when the item does not roll stats or randomized stats. If you uncheck this, then this item will be used, the item stats, right? So let's say that this weapon has attack. So that would be the first thing you would add is the attack and attack power. But we'll talk about stats specifically later. But for the time being, it obviously has to start with some attack, right? Because it's a weapon. So let's say that it has a range of 100 to 120. So that would be the main stat. So while we add it, let's go ahead and actually add this new weapon right here to the world. So right now, since we have no, we essentially disabled this right here, randomize stats. Then this right here will be used, the item stats. But if we need the weapon to actually randomize some stats, then you would add the random stats here, roll stats. And you can indicate the max stats. So let's say this weapon will only have 3 max stats at a time. And the roll stats right here. Then obviously every time, I think since it's a weapon, it has to have some power. So attack power. So that has to be there no matter what. And the min value here, you could like say, for example, from 110 to 150. That would be a random range. And the chance here, I would say 100 because, like I said, attack power you always want it to be there, no matter what. So the randomness will come from this right here, min and max. They will pick a random one. Range set true. Result is integer. This is mainly used if the value is like has to be a float or an integer. So for example, for resistance, let's say poison resistance, obviously you want that to be a float. So it could be like zero point 0.1 or things like that. So for the time, we're actually gonna go ahead and keep this empty, the random stats, because I want to try the normal stats first. So I only have power here. We'll go back to it later. But before we do that, we need to fill in the rest of the info here. So we got actor class. We just created it, which is this Omega Sword number 2. And I'm simply click there to assign it over there. The type is going to be um, a primary weapon. And the specific type here can be a sword, like that. Now, once again, because like I think ideally what you need to do here is you don't need to fill in all these on your own. So what you need to do is just take an example here. So let's say the Omega sword or any sword, um, like like there, and just copy, right click, copy, and then right click on your new thing, new item, and do paste, and then modify the things however you wish. So I would then change the first thing I would do is always the item ID because it has to be unique. And then you can customize the thing. So you need to specify the class like there. So assign it right here, Omega Sword number 2. So the type is a primary, the specific type is a sword. The equipment type is either two-handed or one-handed. This one is going to be two-handed. The equip to, this is where you indicate where an item can be equipped. So is it like a necklace? Is it like an armor? So that would be under the inventory dot slot type, and then you would just simply indicate all the available slots. So if this item is can be dual, like is a one-handed, and it can be equipped to the primary and secondary, like to dual wield. In that case, you would select the primary and secondary, like so. Like you could see them both show up here. Yeah, for the timing, it's a two-handed, so it should only go to the secondary or to the primary, right? But if you have like let's say an armor goes to the gloves, like gloves for example, go to the gloves slot. Yeah, but for our weapon, only to the primary because it's two-handed. Supported classes, this is where you would indicate what class is allowed to use this. So if you just go to class, and you can select all the classes that should support this weapon. Like if class 5, for example, is not allowed to equip this weapon. If you need all classes to support it, then just leave it empty. Like that. Races, same thing. You just race, select all the races that should only be allowed to use this. Same for genders. And this is where you would indicate the socket. So equip to main hand socket. So for example, we have the Omega sword. And that would be if you just go to just look for Manny here real quick. So essentially, you just want to add a new socket. So Omega Sword, as you can see there, we have this socket under hand. So I'm not gonna spend too much time on obviously explaining how sockets work. You can like I'm sure you can find many tutorials on YouTube for that. But yeah, so you just need to indicate the socket and here, so where the weapon will be attached. So it's already indicated here. So Omega Sword, and then offhand. So we have main hand and offhand. And in case of dual wielding, you need two sockets in that regard. So for the timing, we don't really care about dual wielding because it's just a two-handed weapon. But who knows? Maybe it's something you can unlock in the future. So You would indicate both sockets here, same here. And this is where you indicate the equipment. So the equipment is the one that gets equipped to the character visually. So you would go to Action RPG equipment folder, and then I would just simply duplicate any of these right here. So like we already have the Omega Sword. So in this case, I don't need to duplicate this. I could just reuse it, right? Because it's the same item. But if I'm adding a like a brand new weapon, then obviously I would just pick any of these, duplicate, Control D, and open it. And all you need to do here is just simply select the skeletal mesh, change it here. If you need it to be a static mesh, you can still add a static mesh like so as a child. Let's say I don't need this. I don't need it to be a skeletal. I can clear it like so. Then select the skeletal mesh and then select your mesh. Okay, just make sure, very important, that you go to collisions and then you turn off collision here. Otherwise, it will interfere with the character collision. So just make it no collision. The time being, this is a skeletal mesh. That's a sword, and then here, feel free to add extra things. You can add new components, new Niagara effects, and things like that. Um, yeah. And then you would just come back here and indicate it right here. So yeah, since we already duplicated it, I might as well add it there. So we're gonna use this instead now. Now for equipment setup. So this right here is used to give like different classes, different equipment items to based on class, gender, and race, right? So let's say, I mean, obviously, you don't want the same. Like sometimes the same weapon cannot be used for multiple races or genders or classes. So in that case, you would maybe like make a new version, right? Duplicate. That would be like maybe scaled or something like that, and that would like maybe be for like here, maybe that's specifically used with race 2, for example, etc., etc. But if you don't care about that, then you could simply indicate it right here. So the rarity, pretty simple, just a tag. You specify the rarity there, could be common, epic, things like that. You could add new rarities, and to modify the rarity color, that would be in, just look for lib. That would be the ARPG function lib. And here you can find a lot of functions that you can use globally to like access a certain race info, class, color, inventory item. Like anywhere you could call get inventory item, you just simply add the item ID, the category, and you'll retrieve the info from there. But for the time being, we're looking for the rarity color, and this is where you would return your rarity colors based on a tag. You can add more easily by just adding a new tag and return the color there. For the time being, it's going to be legendary. It cannot stack, obviously, because it's a weapon. But if it was a stackable item, then you would indicate it right here, add the max stack to count. This is where you indicate the image and equipped image, slot dimensions. So it's a 2 by 3 for the time being. Someone was asking if you could like make like not use a jigsaw inventory style and then just use a regular like inventory. That would simply be achievable by making every item a 1 by 1, and that's it. Like you're done. That's like a simple inventory system. But obviously with Jigsaw, you have to indicate the dimensions there. So 2 by 3 for the time being. Weight and durability, capacity. This one right here is used for consumables. We'll get back come back later here and explain how consumable work and different things here. Um, so with that, like so far, all you need now is just a name, description, display name. Crafting, we'll talk about crafting later. All right, so let's go ahead and actually test our weapon now. But since we actually duplicated the weapon, we're actually going to remove the random stats from here. I'm going to go and clear that, and I'm simply going to use the item stats. So the item stats, I want attack power. So 500 to 1,000, that's fine. And the second item, I'm just gonna go and delete that. So if I go to the weapon, the pickup item itself, I checked randomized stats. And now if I go ahead and pick up my weapon here, as you can see there, it says 500 to 1,000. We can actually also see it in the world. Like if I just look at it, as you can see, attack power 500 to 1,000. Let's say you need to add a new stat, like default stat. So let's say I want this weapon to have some strength. So I would just go stat, strength, and I don't know, 30. And as you can see there, you can see that it has now 30 strength. But obviously that's not fun, is it? So what we need here is actually random stats. I'm going to clear these item stats. I'm just going to go random stats. And let's say that I want this item to have 5 stats. Why not? So that would be the max. But that doesn't mean really that the item will have 5. It's the max. So everything is going to depend on the odds. So here, attack power always attack power. I'll just say from 500 to 700. We'll just get a random value there. The chance is 100%. Range stat true and results integer. That's fine. Then I'll add like another stat. I'm gonna call it strength, and that would be a min. Let's say 30 to 100, and that's gonna be 100. So we always want strength and attack power. The randomness will come from min and max. Um, Integer is fine, and now we could just say that sometimes you might get lifesteal. So lifesteal, let's say zero point 0.1 to zero point 0.5. And here in this case, I would say 25% chance. And result is integer, I would say false because it needs to be float. Let's see what happens here. We got nothing. So as you can see, we got nothing. And that's because we need to specify right here, randomize stats. And because we cleared our other array item stats. So as you can see, we have 574 to 609, and strength is 85. And we didn't get lifesteal because 25%. But let's say change it to 75%, then we're likely to get lifesteal. As you can see, 0.42 lifesteal. So that's how you would add random stats to your pickups. Now, what you're going to notice here, if when we pick up the weapon, if I right click on the sword and do open, as you can see, we have like a window here and it has extra slots. Right here, we can add gems, and those gems give you extra like stats. Now, for special items or mods, that's indicated right here. So BP weapon mod. So if you browse to that, it's right here. It's a widget. If you need to create a new one, you can just duplicate this, and you can add GSI containers. So you can also just duplicate this, like right, copy and paste. You can create more, but the main important thing here is that since we have 3 containers here, you need to go to git right here, git list of containers, and you need to return them here, all of them. But for the time being, we only have 3. That's why we return 3. So if you added the new one, you would add a pin, add it here. Or if you only have 1 or 2, then you would only return 1 there. Same thing here. You need to do the same thing here. So make array, your containers there, and set the index there. That's it. This item ref is the item itself. You can like do anything with it. Like you can get info to access its info. You can modify it and things like that. And then later, just come here and just indicate the widget there. And that's it. You're done. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. Here you can customize your sounds and inventory when you drag, drop, and when the item is equipped. So all items pretty much share the same functionality. So the only thing that you need to customize is, or the only thing that's different is consumables. So if we go to consumables and also like item sets, and we'll look at that in a second. But for consumables, let's go to special, or not special items, but other. See what we have. So we have a red potion. Red potion right here is a consumable. So that's the type. Very important. You need to specify the type of consumable. And then this can stack. So it's marked as stackable. Max stack is 10 and count is 2 by default. By the way, if you need to have a different count in the world, let's say browse to this right here, put it in the world. If you need this to have like a different count, let's say 99. Well, actually, 99 would be greater than the max, but let's say 5. So you would change the new count to 5 from -1. So now if I go to it, as you can see, it says 5 over there. So for a red potion, when you consume a red potion, or not really just any like anything, any consumable, like even special items, we have here like a scroll. So when you consume this, the logic for that is handled in the character. So if you go to character, then look for on consume. So we have like a jig on item consumed. And right here, we simply check in the item ID. So let's say if it's a red potion, we simply call restore health 75. Now you could argue probably need this indicated in data asset itself. I might do that on a future update, but for the time being, it's right here. Just simply call restore health, restore mana. So let's say if it's a teleport scroll, then you just simply set the location. So same thing for wisdom, things like that. Like this resets your skills. This is where it's handled. So mainly, check on item consumed will be called when you consume an item. And the other consumable we have here is the like the HP bottle right here. So HP bottle. So this is the difference between this is that this is a it's a consumable. It's right here. So it has charges. So if you double click on it, it uses 3 out of 4, 2 out of 4, 1 out of and then 0. Now it's empty. But it doesn't get destroyed. It has charges. Just like Path of Exile if you played that. So this can be customized in here in the capacity. So 4 out of 4 means it has 4 charges. And then we have the do not destroy on consume set to false. If you set it to true, then it would be destroyed when you get to 0 charges. So yeah, keep that in mind. And of course, same thing that's handled here. HP bottle right here. When you use a single charge, it gives you 200 HP. So that's pretty much it. Like the only thing about pickups is the DT sets right here. So DT equipment sets that can be found in inventory and equipment sets folder. So this is where you would indicate your sets. Let's say you need 5 items, then you would get a bonus stats. So like we have here armor. So armor, and then you would say here I need a helmet, armor, gloves, pants, boots, belt, shoulder, cape. And here I indicate like if I have 3 of these, then this is what I would get. I would get some strength. Okay, if I have 6 of them, I would get this plus this. So that would be strength plus attack power, etc., etc. For jewelry, we only did 3: necklace, ear, and ring. But yeah, this is where you would like customize your sets to get extra bonuses. So next on the list is stats. So stats is also stats is also handled in DA underscore. It's like a data asset. So that would be an inventory system jigsaw data stats. So it's a single data asset, and this is where you would indicate your stats. So mainly here, what you're doing is simply giving it a tag. So let's say you need to add a new stat. You would go to a stat, and then you would click on add subtag. Then that stack on like stat point or dot. Let's say luck. Okay, there you go. So now we added a new stat. Okay, obviously I don't want to modify an existing stat, which you could. I what I meant here is I want to add a new stat. So I would click here, and then I would add. Since we just added that tag, obviously we could use it here. So that would be luck right there. Right. So if you need more stats, like I said, you could just add a sub tag and add more stats like that. Name, call it luck. Description, some luck. And ranged stats. So this currently only attack power is ranged. So what does ranged mean? It means that it has a min and max, and that min and max is actually used. So for example, attack power, you can have a sword that deals between 100 and 120. So whenever you swing with the sword, you would sometimes deal 100, sometimes 101, 105, up to 110, which is the max. So that would be a range stat. And currently, only attack power has that. If you have something else that has the same behavior, then you can make it true. But for the most part, you want to have it as false. So min right here, you don't really need to indicate anything there. But you could get like have it as 1 1 for the time being. A percent. This is only used with percent based stats such as resistance or lifesteal. So as you can see there, it's set to true. right? But luck, let's say it's a flat. I guess luck could be percentage. Why not? We'll have it as percent. Fine. Color here, you want to give it like a color. Make sure the alpha here is 1 because sometimes you would change the color and actually the alpha is always 0, right? So you think, yeah, I got the color, but nope, you still need have that as 1 or, anything other than 0 would work. So let's say, I don't know, something like this. Stat gained. Okay, so stat gained is whenever you get this stat, you would get extra stats. So obviously here it doesn't make sense with luck because we set it a percentage. But let's say you have a flat stat such as like dexter armor. Let's say armor. So armor, then you would say, okay, for every point of armor, I would also get a little bit of health, maybe. So stat dot health, and you would say, okay, for every armor, I will get 1 health, for example. So that's where you would do that here. You could also do it negative, like you would lose health if you like armor. But yeah, so that's all. That's all you need here. So stat dot luck. Next is you want to go to the character, and then here we have player stats. Player stats has level, experience, and required experience. These are not really used. You don't want to modify them. These are like I shown previously. The curve is what controls these right here. Stats right there, and then you want to add your new stat, and then give it like luck, like that, and then you could specify the default here, but you don't. It doesn't matter because these right here are controlled from the data asset, the lobby data asset. So you want to go to the lobby setup, and then you want to go to class right here, class number 1, for example, and then you want to go class initial stats, and then you want to add that new stat here. So luck, and obviously you want to do it for all classes. So that would be, so this is the default value. So let's say it's 10, like that. You don't have to specify a max value here, but if you really need it for reference or something, you could set it there. So 100, for example. So next is you want to go to BP underscore player stat W. This you can find it in widgets, other widgets. So right here we have like our primary stat right here and our other stat. So in the future, or like in a future update, you might find this to be empty because I'm thinking that this should fill automatically from the array. You don't actually have to do this manually. So in the future, if you find this different, like you don't see these, just know that it will do it automatically. You don't have to do it manually. But for the time being, just to explain the process, I'm gonna go ahead and just duplicate lifesteal. So I'm just gonna control C, then select this vertical box, control V. So it's right here. I'm gonna give it luck. And then you give it the tag. So stat.tag, change the tag there to luck. And that's pretty much it. I don't think I need to do anything else. Easy way to do that, just right click on these, find references. Okay, so there's no references. So it finds them automatically by just looking in the vertical box. So let's go ahead and actually play and see how it goes. So if I go to attributes, as you can see, luck is 10%. So that would be the default value we specified in the data asset. Let's say that our Omega Sword, the new weapon here, gives some luck. So that would be in the inventory, DA, inventory. So our new weapon here, new sword will roll some luck. Okay, so we'll add it at the end here. So luck, we'll have it 100% for the time being, just so we can see it. Chance 100. And then the min here will be like from 10 to 30. So let's see if we get some luck. As you can see there, we got 16.5. Equip that. And then our attribute, we have now 26.5 luck. Because we had our 10 by default plus the new from the weapon. That's pretty much it for stats. The final thing that you want to do here is you want to go to um, main AI. So main AI can be found in AI folder, main AI, and then it also has the same array. Well, the same struct, player stats, or AI stat list. It's actually the same thing. So it uses the same character array, or like struct, not array. Struct in array, I guess. So that would be AI stat, AI stat list. Um, yeah, so you would do the same thing. Hey, if AI needs luck, then you could add it here. If it doesn't need it, then I guess you don't need to add it. But if for some reason AI has to use luck to some extent, then you could just add it here. And here we could just specify the stat directly. So default value would be like, I don't know, let's just give it 10 as well. So yeah, that's it. So AI now has access to that stat as well. And for both AI and the character, if you need to access a certain stat, you could just do get. You could do get stat value, get current stat value. You could like, let's say luck. And you can also set stat. You could also like call this right here. And same functions can be found in the character as well. Let's talk about player skills and skill tree. So if we look for skill tree, we have three examples right here. So this is a skill tree, as you can see there. So let's say you want to create a new skill tree. So all you need to do here is just simply duplicate one of these. Let's say, let's call this, let's make it so this skill is going to be used with class 4, for example, or you can modify this. But for the time, this is our new skill tree. So what you need to do here is just to explain how it works. We could keep that attack, like the basic attack. So I'm going to select every skill here except for basic attack. And then I'm going to hit delete, and that would delete everything. So now I only have this skill. And this uses the BP skill container widget. That same widget is also used in the action bars. So it's a simple widget, right? So it's a basic attack, or you could call this or like have this as your root, the skill tree root skill. Now, you don't have to have everything connected. You could have them separated. That's completely fine. So let's say that this is our basic attack. So for skills, we use or mainly for player skills, we use a data asset called DA skill uh, skills, DA underscore skills. This is where we indicate all our skills and utility skills. Utility skills can be accessed from here. Utility. These are your utility skills. You can drag them here, and you could also indicate the default skills that you should see here. You can see that spider mount is already added here by default, so that also can be indicated. I'll show you that later. But for the time being here, we have skills. These are your active skills. Okay, we have active skills and passive skills. Active skills are the skills that you execute to do something, such as spawn something, do damage, jump, roll, etc. And passive skills are skills that support the active skills. Let's say you have an attack. Now we have passive skills that actually add more damage to that attack, or add a new modifier such as fire, poison, things like that. So the first thing you want to do here is obviously add your active skills. So I already have a few examples here, but let's say that I want to add a new attack. But first of all, let me explain how the basic attack works, because like the same basic attack is used with multiple classes. So a single skill can be used in multiple classes, and it can like have different behaviors. So basic attack. So the first thing you need here with the active skills, not the passive skills, with the active skills is you need a tag for each skill. So we have skill.active.basic attack, and they're right here. So if you need a new skill, active skill, you can just simply click on the add sub attack, and skill.active.basic Let's say roll skill. See, that would be your skill right there. But for the time being, this is a basic attack. So let's go ahead and set that tag right there. So basic attack. So this tag right here is where you indicate it right here. Only for active skills. Passive skills don't need that. So you would indicate it right here. So you would do like basic attack, like that. So that's where you would indicate it. And the image of the skill here is also pulled from the data, like the data asset. So you can specify it here. Uh, but also you can specify it here, but this is just temporary. But it will actually pull the image from the data asset itself, except for passive skills, which you can then use this. But for now, we'll go back to the active skills here. I want to more explain the skill tree itself, and then later we'll come back here and explain how to add attacks and montages and things like that, and damage, etc. But for now, skill tree. So let's say that, okay, this is our basic attack. Let's say I want to add another attack. Let's say, what do we have here? We have spin attack. So I would simply control C. So select that, control C, control V, add that right there. Change this to spin attack. Right, you can move it anywhere you want. If you want to align it perfectly, you can select this, go to position here. We have X. I would give it the same X. And there you go, it's aligned. Then you could like change the Y to however you want. Let's say I want to connect these. So for the time being, like I said, the icon here will be pulled from the active skill, like as you can see there. But if I want to add it here, I could do that, right? But just know that it actually pulls the image from here for active skills. Then let's say I want to connect these right here. So I would select this. Then I would go to, you could also customize the image size if you want. Make sure you specify is active. So set it to true. So all you need to do here is just do a parent skill. But before you do that, just to make your life easier, you want to rename them. So this is already named basic attack. I would just do spin attack. So naming them will just make your life easier, because right here, if I want to connect these two, I would select the turn, like the spin attack right there, and do parent skill, then click add, and then select the basic attack. And now, as you can see, they're connected. You can also select the background tree here, and you can customize the colors. So this right here says skilled. So when it's skilled, like currently it's active by default. So is active, I would select that default. So you actually have to spend points on it. Also, I said if it's an active skill, that's actually wrong. If it's an active skill, we would actually do it here. The type. We have active and we have passive. Okay, action bar is used for action bars. We don't care about it here. All you care about here is active and passive. So these, both of these are active. So is active means is it active by default? So the basic attack, we do want it to be active by default. We don't want to spend any points on it. We want it to be available right away. But for this right here, we need to spend a point on it. So that's why it's set to active is set to false. So I compiled. Now the color changed to white because it's right here. So this is like not skilled. I need to spend point on it. Once I spend a point on it, then the line will change to this color. Yeah. So like I said here, you could change the color. So let's say let's say I want to change the color. Let's say this by default. Sure. But by default, it's like white. And then when this right display dynamic came over here, will update at runtime. Let's say you want another active skill. Control C, Control V. Let's see what we have here. We have a basic heal. Sure, let's use that. So the tag is the first thing you want to modify. Basic heal. And then I would name it here. Basic heal. And so we could connect it to this or both. So what we can do here is just go to the parent skills. Then I would connect it to this right here. So that would be spin attack. So spin attack, and also I can also connect it to, so by adding a new element to the basic attack. There you go. And you can like make like a circle. You could also play around with some settings here, like use arc. It will try to do an arc here. So use arc, use arc. You could flip the arc. It depends on the position. So let's say I move this here. So let's say flip arc, flip arc. Yeah, so just play around it. These are still experimental. They're not perfect. But if you don't need it to do an arc, you just have it like as a straight line like that. So generally speaking, the skill tree, this is how you set it up. You just copy paste all a bunch of skills. If it's an active, you specify active here, you give it the tag. And now let's go ahead and talk about passive. So let's say I'm gonna go and delete that. For the time being, I'm just gonna have two skills. Do the same X. So let's say that now I want to add some passive skills. So passive skills can do two things. One, they can boost active skills, meaning that they can add damage. They can extend the duration of a skill. They can add fire damage. They can add a new damage type, such as, I don't know, poison damage. They can boost the fire damage. Let's say that this already does damage, but you want it to do even more fire damage. Um, so that would be the first thing that a passive skill does. The second thing is it can benefit the player, mainly in terms of stats. Let's actually go ahead and do this. I'm going to go and copy that. And now, very important, this is a passive skill now. So the tag doesn't really matter here because it's a passive skill. So passive skills are modified in the tree itself. That's why, I mean, maybe in the future we could have them here as well, but for the time being, they're modified in the skill tree. So you would indicate it's a passive, and then you would go. You could change. So passive skills, you need to indicate the image here. So I don't know. Let's say that this passive skill benefit the player. Let's say that if you have this, so make sure it's active set to false, so you have to spend some points on it. So obviously I wanted to be connected to the basic attack, so I'm gonna go to parents, basic attack, like that. Wait, it doesn't have to be connected to the basic attack, obviously, but it's a good start. So let's say that this is a passive skill, and when it's skilled, I wanted to give me, the player, some stats, some strength. So I would go to the passive skill settings here. And this is where you play around with the passive settings. Yeah. So trigger chance, I would have it 100%. Um, the mainly here, I wanted to just give me stats. So character added stats. I would have it to give me like some strength, and I wanted to give me 50, for example. Yeah, so by doing that, now if you spend some points, if you spend a point on this skill, it will give you 50 strength. Um, so here, I think that it's best to just open one of the skill trees and just see what I did there, because it's pretty much the same thing. Like in terms of building the tree, it's literally all, it just comes down to just linking them with the parent skills, and that's it. And then you indicate the tag if it's an active skill, and if it's a passive skill, you simply set it to passive, and you mainly go to the passive settings section. Also, make sure you want. Okay, so also for passive skills, make sure you give it a name here and a description. But for active skills, you can do that in the data asset. Um, One thing is nice about data assets is you can search. So let's say description, you can find it right there. Also, if it expands like this, everything, you can hold shift and click here. And now as you can see, it actually collapse everything. You can also hold shift and click and it will actually extend everything. So yeah, so passive skills. So this right here, the main thing about passive skills when it comes to supporting another active skill is you want to indicate the supporting skill. So the main thing about passive skills when it comes to supporting another active skill, so this passive skill is going to benefit this active skills, all of these actually. Um, so the main thing you want to do is you want to indicate the supporting skill. So this says that it supports the spin attack. This one right here. So that's very important. You want to indicate what skill, what active skill I'm supporting. So it's the spin attack. And then you can give it like a custom image. And then you want to go here. That's just the parent. That's just the linking. So the main thing you want to go here is to the passive skill setting. So 100%. You could have it like trigger sometimes, um, like let's say a poison damage or something like that. So sometimes it triggers, sometimes not. But for this right here, once you activate it, That's it. It's 100% every time. It gives you 20% damage boost. That's all it does. Um, so this one right here is if you hit an enemy with this skill, they will lose 10% of their movement speed. So that's what it does here. So 100% trigger chance. What it does, it takes away 10% of their movement speed. So do minus 10%. If you wanted to give movement speed, you would do plus 10%. So yeah, if you wanted to give movement speed for some reason to enemies, then have this as plus 10 or 10. Just don't do the minus. This right here, it gives a new damage type. So this right here does not do any fire damage, but this allows it to now deal extra damage as fire damage. It was still so this is already doing physical damage, but this allows it to also deal fire damage. And the fire damage it does 15 fire damage for every second for 5 seconds. These are the settings for it. And what this does, it essentially boosts that damage further. So yeah, so it deals 15 damage. Now it deal even more. So 50% increase to that 15 damage. And also it extends the duration. So this one deals 1 or like 15 damage every second for 5 seconds. Now it deals more fire damage and that duration is extended. So not 5 seconds, now it's 7 seconds. This value right here is used for that. It's also used right here. So this is an active skill that adds stats to or crit chance to the player. This right here extends the duration of that bonus by 10 seconds. So you could have a single passive skill do multiple things or a specific thing. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Like it can do like new damage types. You can increase the damage type. It can slow down movement. It can stun. So right here, so new added effect stun. So let's say that this basic attack now has a chance, 10% right there, to stun the target. Yeah, that's pretty much mainly it. Like stun, boosting the damage, um, boosting the effects such as fire damage, like by 50% right in that case. Add in a new damage type such as fire damage here. Don't forget to add the specify the damage type and obviously give it a name and description. So once you're done with your skill tree, you want to head over to the ARPG player controller. And then here we have a skill tree component. Right here, you want to specify the starting skill points. Currently, you start with 5. These are settings for the skill tree. Feel free to customize them, but mainly here is the skill tree config by class. What you want to do here is you want to specify the skill tree, which is in our case here, it's this one right here. So that would be assigned for class 1. So class 1 will get this skill tree. So class 2 will get this skill tree specifically. And next, you want the initial action bar. So if we hit play, you can see that we start with a basic attack by default. So you want to simply indicate them here. So that would be skill active dot basic attack. You can add more if you want. I will also indicate the utility mount. So utility skills can also be indicated right here. We'll see that later. But you can also add them as default, like by default to the action bar. And then finally, once you're done with your skill tree, you want to select the root folder. Then you want to go to the server data category, right? Make sure auto assign unique ID is set to true. If you don't need that, you would have to give every skill and passive skill unique ID. As you can see here, it's generated that by default, so 0, 52, 53, so automatically. So every skill needs a unique ID. That's very important. Um, if not, I mean, you make your life easier and just have that be true. Um, and then you want to click here, generate server data. Once you do that, it will fill this array. So if I go ahead and clear it, click there, it will fill this array. You want to right click and copy. And then you want, so this one is skill class 1. Then you want to go here And then where you see server tree, you want to right click and paste. So that would be the server tree. That's how the server knows about your skill tree because this is a widget. Like the server is not going to be dedicated servers don't have access to widgets. So as dedicated server is not going to access this widget. It's a kind of client side thing. So you have to generate the server data. And then you update the settings for the skill tree were moved to a data asset right here. So instead of like modifying the settings in here in the component, we now do it in the data asset called da underscore skill tree data, which is right here in this directory. So it's the same thing, it's just in a data asset. So the reason is because you don't need to right click the data. So when you go here and select here, and when you generate the data, like if you check this, we have now a new checkbox called write data to data asset. And it will write it right here. So this is the data asset right here indicated. And so once you generate the data, the server data, it will automatically write that data to the data asset directly based on the skill tree class. So class one, it will then go in this data asset and then it will go in class one here and it will paste that data right here in server tree. So you don't have to do it manually. You can modify your skill tree right here. And once you're done, select the root widget here and simply check the generate server data and it will automatically write that data down for you automatically. And also the advantage of using a data asset is you can use multiple data assets if you want. So you can just go here and change it right here. Now, one important thing is that you need to, once you do this, once you generate the server data, you need to go here and save it manually, so that the data is serialized. And the utility skills, we have the mount, spawn friendly, spawn spiders. Those appear here at the utility. So that's all there is to it, to the skill tree. Now let's go ahead and discuss the active skills. Okay, so once you execute a certain active skill, such as a basic attack, you need to know what to do with that skill. So let's have a look at the basic attack. So first of all, like I said, if you create a new active skill, you can do it here by clicking on the add element. If you create a new utility skill, you can do it here. For the basic attack, the first thing you want to do here is obviously indicate the tag. If you create a new skill, you want to go to the active and then do add subtag and then make a new tag for your new skill. The execution method, so the required level there. We have the execution method is on press. So as soon as you press a button, you will execute the skill. On press required target, you need to have a target in order to execute the skill. So you need to be like targeting someone, looking at someone. Depends on top down or third person. So manual, you would have to target it. So that's mainly used with the AoE heal. As you can see, it says manual. So that what that does is, so this right here, AoE heal. So when you press, it will actually let you select where to execute it, like 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 there. So that what manual does. Like usually with like ground targeted skills or skills that you need to manually select where to execute it, that would be manual. And then manual required target is like it's manual, but you have to have a target, otherwise it's not going to execute. Can execute and place. This is mainly for top down. It means that like if I play right now and like do a right click, if I target there, it would still attack. But if I disable this option, the player will actually have to move there. So as you can see, I click there. The player actually moves to the location and then attacks. So that's what can execute in place is used for. And then of course the targeting decal. We have one example, which is the AoE heal. We have this right here. So you can just duplicate this. It's a simple, like all you got to do here is just open it and then change the decal and then indicate it here. So that's the decal for selecting where to execute a certain skill. And then you can customize the max targeted distance. Yeah, based on the skill. So for this, it's 3,000 by default. The rest is pretty straightforward. So can target friendly, like it's a skill can target friendly, cast while stunned. Like if you're stunned, obviously by default you can't execute skills, but you can use it for skills that I don't know, purge stuns, uh, like break stun and things like that. The channeling settings, like we have also for the this right here, is also a channeled skill, so you can enable set to true the duration. The can be cancelled. Obviously, if you move, it will cancel the channeling. If it requires a movement stop, meaning that you need to be standing still, and then the channeling montage. So the channeling montage, you need to. So for the channeling montage, you need to add a notify here called channeling done, and that's where the skill will then be executed. So and then the rest is just mana cost, cooldown, the base damage. So for the logic for how the skill works in terms of like doing damage, doing like some custom logic, we use the BP main skill. So if I go to BP main skill, this is used right here. BP main skill is like whenever you execute a certain skill, it spawns, and then that's how you do your skill logic. Similar to gameplay ability system, but it's used with just normal blueprints. So let's say the basic attack, that would be, if I can find it here, melee attack. So so what this does is it simply does a multi-sphere trace, and that's how it damages the enemies. And we'll see that later. But certain skills they can just run without needing the BP skill to spawn because these skills can just do one thing, such as restoring your health. In that case, you don't need to spawn a skill. You could still do it with the skill, but here we have some parameters that you just use them and don't need to worry about spawning a skill. So in this case, we'll actually have an example. So let's see, basic heal. Here we go. So the basic heal is it simply restores health. So whenever you execute this skill, it simply restores health, and that's it. That's his job. Um, it's not complex. It's just restore health and be done. So in that case, you don't really need a BP skill to be spawned. You can simply indicate, hey, restore health or restore mana, and that's it. Or also cleanse damage over time. Let's say you want a certain skill to remove poison damage. You can indicate it right here. So poison damage. So damage type poison. Now this skill like clears damage. You can indicate multiple here. We already have examples for that. So yeah, we already have examples for that. You can check them out in these existing skills. But yeah, so that's where you would need this value. So restore health, restore mana, remove stun effects. Like, a skill can remove the stun, a stun. Like if you're stunned, you can remove this. But make sure that you need to allow execute, like can execute when stunned. If I can find it here. Oh, yeah, here we go. Cast while stunned. So you would need this to true, and then you would have this skill. I already have the rage. So I have a skill called rage right here. As you can see, this actually can be cast while stunned, and what it does is it removes all status effects like bleeding, dark fire, all of that. And it also removes stun if you're stunned and movement slow. So this is kind of a big purge. It removes everything from your character. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Like when it comes to these default settings. So then you would select an icon, supported classes. Now, now we come to the BP main skill, which is like the blueprint that is used to make complex skills that do something like spawn a mount and things like that. So the first thing you want to do here is indicate the supported weapon types. So this basic attack can only be executed if you have an axe, sword, dagger, spear, hammer, and bow equipped. If you have this array cleared, then any weapon can be used, or no weapon at all. Like if you have no weapon equipped, it can still be executed. Um, but yeah, if you need to restrict certain skills to a certain weapon, this is where you would indicate it by specifying the type. Um, can and also can execute without a weapon. If you set it to true, it will execute without a weapon. Required movement stop is basically the character will stop, do the skill, and then keep moving. So that's what it's used there. Name, description, straightforward. Damage type, right there. You can use damage type, and you can damage type, and you can like specify there. There, if you need more types, you can just do add subtag. Um, apply effects, we'll talk about that in a second. So extra levels, like if I play right now, bring this skill tree, you can see that it says 1 out of 3. So that would be level 1. If I give it a point, now it's a 2 out of 3, which is level 2. So it gives me more things. And 3, it gives me extra things. Apply now. My basic attack is actually level 3, and it has bonuses. You can see it there in description. So right here, that's where you would indicate extra level. So level 1, or like, so this would be level 1. This level 2. This is level 3. So level 2, new icon, new name, new description. It gives you more damage. So it changes in the base damage. So by default, this deals um 20. Now it deals 40. It doesn't change the cooldown. So -1 just means keep it the same. It doesn't change the mana cost. You could override the skill BP. We'll see that in a second. And it can add extra effects. We'll also explore that in a second. And this right here, also the same, just increase damage, etc. Pretty straightforward. Okay, so now how do you play a montage? Or how to execute a skill? So then you would go to attack set up by type. This is where you would go specifically. Now you might see this basic attack as being complex. It's just because the basic attack is like used with every weapon, every class. But if you have another skill that is pretty simple to execute, it'll be more simpler. But the basic attack, I think it will explain everything. If you still have any questions, obviously, feel free to join our Discord. Link is in the product description, or leave a question in the comments below. But attack set up by type. This is where you would indicate one montage to play based on what weapon, and also based on what mesh the character has. So if you have like multiple characters with different meshes and they have different skeleton, then you would indicate different montages based on that. But so first thing is by weapon. So index 0, so we have like 6 elements right now. So you would like click plus, then we add the first item. So here it says, okay, if we have a hammer currently equipped, then go ahead and play this montage and spawn this specific skill BP. And you can also specify the target range and can target. Like certain skills can just be executed without needing a target, and or like yeah, so without needing to target someone, or they can target. Like let's say um, an arrow attack or healing attack can target someone. So that where you would indicate it. So if we have a hammer equipped, then we have the section montages to play. Currently we have two. So two. The first one is for mesh. It says, okay, if I have, so mainly you go to the main character. So it's looking for for the main mesh, this right here. So by default, I have SK Manny head. That's what it's looking for. So let's say that race 3 is some orc, let's say. Then at that point, you, this right here would be different, right? It would be like an orc head, something like that. In that case, you would come here, and that's only important if they don't share the same anim BP. If they do share the same anim BP, then obviously the same montage will work for all of them, so no need to do this. But here we're saying, okay, if it's SK Manny head or Quinn. I don't have a modular pieces for Quinn currently, so that's why I just indicated the full body. So if it's Manny or Quinn, essentially, play these montages, random ones. This is a combo. You'll play this, then this, then this. It's a combo. This is where you indicate your combo attack. So if it's Manny or Quinn, the skeletal meshes, then these are the montages that you're gonna play. And here, then, if you have another mesh, in this case, I have the mannequin, the UE4 mannequin. In this case, I said, okay, if it's the mannequin, the UE4 mannequin, then play these instead. These are the UE4 mannequin. So this obviously works under the assumption that they both, the mannequin and Manny and Quinn, they don't share the same skeleton. If they share the same skeleton, then obviously you don't care. You don't need to split the montages. They could just use the same montage. But for this example, since they don't share the same skeleton, we had to do, okay, if it's Manny or Quinn, then these are the montages. If not, then this is the montage. But yeah, so that's essentially what you need to do there in terms of montages to play. if you don't indicate any skeletal meshes, then it will simply assume it's compatible and it will just play the montages anyway. But if you need to be specific, that's how you do it. And then finally, just the skill to spawn. So before you go to the skill to spawn, the next these are the same thing. It just says, okay, well now if you have a bow, these are the montages. If we have a omega sword, if we have a axe, we only have multiple things here just because this is a basic attack, and basic attack can simply work for any class. That's why we have multiple things. Like, so let's say a more simpler attack, such as the AoE heal. If you go to the attack set up by type, as you can see, only one element, and it simply says, okay, weapon IDs, we have nothing. So essentially, doesn't matter what weapon you have, just play the skill. Here we said, okay, yeah, so we simply indicated the montages. That's it. So we still need to specify the meshes with the montages in case they're different. But yeah, so that's it. Like for all weapons, it doesn't matter. Right. So now for the BP, the skill BP. So support weapon types is once you indicate your weapon types and montages, you also need to specify the skill to spawn, which in this case, it's whenever you execute the basic attack, this skill will be executed. So when is it going to be executed? That's in the montage. So if you go to the montage here, let's say this axe 1. So this is where the skill will spawn and deal damage. And this is the notify that it's used. So make sure it's called attack. And then we have a second notify, not necessary, but you can add it. It's called move. So in case the skill requires movement stop, meaning that you have to stop still and execute the skill, you can add this notify to indicate. You could say, okay, the character is allowed to move at this point in the montage and not wait for the montage to finish. Without this notify, the character will only move, be able to move when when the montage is done. But you can like say, okay, at this point they can move and blend out and move. So you could add this notify move right there. But mainly the attack notify is where the skill will trigger. Once you hit the notify, the skill BP will trigger. In this case, it will trigger the BP melee attack. You could reuse the main skill BP for multiple things, but this will be executed. This inherits from BP main skill, and you have access to a lot of things. So make sure if you don't see these variables, make sure you have click on the gear here and do show inherited variables, and you have a couple of informations here. You have the owner, the pawn owner. The main skill BP can be executed by the player or AI. So this is where you would check if it's AI or player. You don't have to check yourself. We already have this. Owner is AI. You have the damage type that you indicated in data asset. You have the skill damage. You have the effects. We actually didn't talk about the effects. So the effects are right here. Apply effects. So apply effects are essentially just effects that you apply to the target, the target that you damaged. So in this case, it's a bleed. So whenever you hit someone with this basic attack, there's a chance that they will bleed. So the behavior here is when okay. So make sure you give a unique ID so that when you apply the same effect, you can refresh the duration, or you can stack it. But just make sure you give it a unique ID. In this case, it's bleed. So bleed, the chance is 10%. So whenever you hit the target, they have a 10% to inflict bleed on the target. The damage is bleed. Damage by bleed. You could do a lot of things. The trigger behavior is if you apply the same effect multiple times, what happens, right? Refresh or stack. So apply once. This is mainly used for things that should only apply once, because for a bleed, it it triggers every second for 3 seconds. But let's say for a movement slow, and I actually have that for this spin attack. So this spin attack, if I go to the effects, here we go. as you can see, it is set to apply once. So that is true. So what it does is it simply reduce movement speed by 20%. And it has the interval to zero. So meaning that as soon as you hit the target, it will immediately remove 20% of their movement speed right away for 5 seconds. But the reason why apply once is set to true is because you don't want to keep doing it every second. You don't want to do like every second. I want to do minus 20, minus 20, minus 20. It's just not gonna work. You have to do it once. You hit them once, you reduce their movement speed by 20%. That's where you do apply once. It could also be used for a stun as well. Like you just want to stun them once and that's it. I mean, it's possible to keep stunning them every few seconds, but just keep that in mind. Mainly for movement speed here. Otherwise, you're gonna be like you want to apply immediately, so that's where zero is indicated there with apply once. So do it as soon as possible for 5 seconds. But yeah, so when it comes to effects, you can add stats to the target. You can stun the target. You can knock. Knock is not implemented yet. So immune to stun is you can just be immune to stun. So remember that this is being applied to the target, not yourself. I have a variable here called apply to owner. Instead, this will be available in the next update. By the time you watch this, it might actually be already there. So if you set this to true, it should apply these to the owner. You can add the multiple effects. You can do this to the owner and the rest to the target. But mainly, if it's false, these will be applied to the target you hit. Also, the effect can be positive or negative. Let's say a healing effect is positive. In that case, this is where you would need to maybe apply immune to stun, things like that. It's a friendly healing, something like that. Yeah, and you can do the effect image. So for things like bleeding, poison damage, frost, things like that, you don't need to apply the image. We have um, images set by default there. So once you do this, then now you move on to the BP here. So these are the skills that we just talked about. You have the cursor world location and top down. You have the skill level and owner faction and PvP guild if it's enabled or not. We'll talk about these later, but for the time being, this is all you need. You can use these, but like you don't necessarily need all of those. Like all you need to do here, for example, in our case, the basic attack, all we did is whenever we execute the skill, we just do a spear trace for object, like regular like trace to find enemies. Then you have access to this built-in function. You just pass damage multiple enemies. This will check if the hit target is a friendly or enemy. It will return the hit enemies in this case, and then you can like set this to true, apply effects, and then it will apply the skill effects such as stun, bleed, things like that. Yeah, so this is essentially just you do whatever you want here to have the skill behave a certain way. Let's say for the AoE heal, it's a friendly skill. In that case, what we did here is simply did the multi-sphere trace for objects. We're trying to find the friendlies to heal. So in that case, we simply we have access to target hostile. So this will let you know if the target is enemy or not. In this case, we're looking for friendlies, right? Then once we find them, we do apply skill effect. We added the skill effect, which will heal them and do things like that. And then we also removed negative effects from them. Also, if you need a skill to replicate, you need to do class defaults and then go to replication and then enable replication. And you can also replicate movement speed. So feel free to take a look at these skills, such as the orb attack, arrow, the spin attack, things like that. So this is where you would customize or do your own custom logic for the skill. We have like utility skills. It's the same concept, the same inherits from the same main skill. So what this does is it simply spawns a mount and then it assigns it to the player. All right, let's move on to AI. So AI and AI skills. So all AI inherit from BP AI main, and you can find some presets here that you can duplicate. So we have so essentially all these presets are simply based on different settings. So if you open the let's say the mannequin child or the mage. So essentially the main difference between all of these, other than this is a friendly and all it does is it just sets the friendly. So if you need a friendly, you can just duplicate these. But it all comes down to having different settings. So name, color, and use crowd detour. So you can use the regular AI controller or the detour controller. You can customize that here, and you could also specify the specific class. The AI is active. So let's say we have an enemy here, such as it's well. Let's just do a small spider. Okay, so if we go to the details here, let's say that you don't want it to be active by default. So if you check that and then play, he will not attack you because he's not active. You can at any time call activate AI on the AI and it will activate it. So let's say if it's set active to true, then he will be active by default. Or you could also activate the AI. You could call activate AI, and you can wake up the AI or activate it to run its behavior logic. So before going into the settings, let's go ahead and talk about the AI home for AI. So AI, they have a AI home. That's how the AI knows where to patrol, like around its home area. And also, that's what it's used to um, respawn the AI. So if I just drop this AI home right there and then go to details here and just customize the radius to around like that, for example, for this AI, as you can move it, it will draw the radius like that. So that would be the radius of this spider. So you could either place the AI manually in the world. And once you do that, you want to select the AI, look for AI home or just home, and it will ask you to select a certain home. You can just click on the picker there and just select it home. That's it. Or you don't need to spawn this right here. You could just go to the AI home, and this is how you would usually do it. So you would just go to the AI to spawn, and you could just select that spider. So you just go to the spider small like that, and you can indicate the respawn time between 10 to 20 seconds, so random. Enable respawn, and then this right here, set AI party. So if you notice in the top down, when you attack one guard, all the guards come at you, like essentially treating you as a hostile. So that's where you would specify this right here. So you would indicate the all the guards here, and then you would set this to true. So if you attack one, they attack all of them attack you. So if you go ahead and play, well, actually, let's go ahead and reduce the cooldown there. So let's say 2 seconds to 4. So you'll find him here. So he'll respawn in 2 to 4 seconds. Once he dead, there we go. So that's the AI home in a nutshell. So now going back to the settings here. So for the AI presets, let's say the spider. So mainly here, if you want to specify the behavior, and we have aggressive, defensive, and passive. So just you can take a look at these different presets from the demo, the top-down map, and you'll just essentially see that they have different behaviors. So aggressive will be like aggressive will just come at you, essentially just attack. If it's defensive, it will be like the mage. It will try to keep distance, and if you get near it, it will try to get away and get some distance. And passive is just chilling, doing nothing, just passively. You're not gonna attack. So mainly, like when it comes to these, like you change them at runtime. So if it's passive, you can like later make it aggressive, like the guards. Like the guards by default are passive. So let's see, hostile on damage. So hostile on damage, as you can see, they're passive. But once attack, they become aggressive, and that's like handled here. Then you have the hostility. So all AI have AI as hostility. In terms of hostility, we have neutral, non-player, and to everyone. To everyone will attack anything it sees. Um, Player is your own hostility, so the player has player as hostility. That's how the AI attack the player. The friendly, you're gonna notice here. If I go to mage friendly, so what it does here, it changes the hostility to player. So essentially, both you and that AI share the same hostility. So that's where it can be changed. So by default, AI will be hostile to the player. The faction also can influence the hostility. So by default, it's set to none, and the player also has a none faction. So like there, so faction is set to none. You could set faction one or whatever. You can add more factions if you want. And so AI, if you go to the game state, we have right here allow faction PvP and allow guild PvP. You can enable these if you want to have. You can enable them to like be able to attack members of different factions. But like for AI, for example, that spider. If I put two spiders here and just simulate, as you can see, they considered each other as allies, right? But if I change this guy, if I change his hostility here to player, now they're gonna attack each other, as you can see there. But I mean, hostility is just one factor. You could keep them as AI, but give them different factions. So let's say this guy's faction one and this guy's faction two. And in that case, they will actually attack each other because of different factions. But if they were the same faction, then let's say this one is faction one. So both of them are faction one right now, then they're chilling, right? They're allies. So you can also play around with the factions to influence like different behaviors with the AI. Um, so next is acceptance move to radius. This is like when you're trying to move to a certain AI, depending on its capsule size, that's where you would handle it here. So if you have a big AI with a big capsule, make sure you increase this. AI can't move. This is used for the turret, so it's just stationary. It doesn't move. Um, defensive escape distance. This is when you get too close to the AI. If it has a defensive behavior, it will try to get away from you and get some distance. This is the strafing distance. Obviously, the spider small doesn't strafe. For the AI has like a distance to strafe with 150, strafe angle 45, on target, on aggro target all. So it says, for example, a guard, if attacked by a player, then all nearby players are considered enemies. If this is false, only those who damage the guard. So essentially, if you have a guard, one player attack him, everyone becomes a target for the guard. If that is true. If it's false, then obviously it will not attack the. Only damage those that damage the guard. Duration to clear aggro, mainly for the guard. It'll take 10 seconds to so they forget about you. Stationary AI, that's mainly like guard can be a stationary AI, not roaming. Like you have your regular AI that just roam around, but you can have a stationary AI such as the guard that just standing in one place. That's where you would enable it. Activate AI. You can have certain AI be deactivated. The guard right now is deactivated by default, but once damaged, they can activate. So you can do that to save for performance. Investigate and detect damage, pretty clear. Just if they get damaged, you'll go there and try to see what's up. Investigate the area, and then here the like max distance from home, how far they can go, how far they can chase. And there's the multiplier. This is when chasing. So let's say that their home radius is around 2,500. This is the multiplier where they can extend that distance when chasing. So they're not allowed to go over this when patrolling, but if they're chasing a target, they might go over it by this multiplier. And then when investigating, should the AI sprint? Um, can aggro when retreating. So if the AI is retreating, can it re-aggro? I see some games that they just don't allow the AI to aggro again if it's like retreating, and sometimes they even make it immune to damage. Um, and then obviously the wait time before destroy. This is mainly used with the boss. So at a certain HP percentage, the boss will be stunned, and that's where you would indicate the stun montage. So obviously, you would indicate this for every AI because every AI can be stunned. You can also make certain AI immune to stun or movement slow. Let's say you have a boss that just you just don't want him to be stunned. You can do that here. And guarding here can guard. These are the settings for guarding. Pretty straightforward. The damage reduction that's 0 to 1. So 0.9 means like you'll block 90% of the damage. and the stats, which we talked about earlier, just the stats. You can have like the health, movement speed, trace speed, sprint, etc. And finally, for the AI, when it comes to skills, this is where you indicate your skills. Skills are a data asset similar to player skills, but it's just you have skills. If you need more skills, you just duplicate this. Let's say this is melee, melee number two. Why not? Right? And then you open it. And then this is where you would indicate the montages for the AI. You can indicate uh, random montages, essentially. And they start the settings for it. And it does essentially the same thing as the player skills. You indicate the blueprints. So in this case, we're using the same melee attack. This is actually used by the player as well. It just does a trace and then it does damage. And then these are the effects. You can like do bleeding, stun, etc. So you just go to the AI and you indicate them here. And you also have the cooldown and things like that. So this makes it easier to go like to different AI and just give them the same skill. You don't have to fill in the same info. So we've talked about guilds and no, what factions. Didn't talk about guilds, but guilds you just press G. So you just press G and you can create a guild. And if you want to allow um, guild PvP, is like I said in the game instance, the game state, sorry, and you can enable PvP, faction PvP, or guild PvP. And to invite someone to a guild or party or faction, you just right click on the player. So when it comes to looting, lootables, harvesting, things like that. So for harvesting, we have like four types here. The main difference between all of these is just the settings. So right here we have the settings here, spawn condition. So first of all, you need to indicate your items to spawn. So you could do them here. So in this case, this spawns a green gem, the min and max, and the spawn chance and roll times. You can indicate all that here. Spawn condition is the main difference between all of these. So we have on interact, then destroy. So once you interact with this, it will spawn, roll the spawns, and then it will destroy itself. Keep alive. Let's say it's a tree. You want to interact with it, get some apples, and then keep the tree alive. So you could do like keep alive. You have on. Actually, this is the begin play. So on begin play, not on interact. So there's begin play. This is set to an on interact. So you can interact with it, and then you can destroy or keep alive. On health depleted. So you have to attack it, and you indicate the health here, and max damage per hit. So usually one, and then you just do like three. So you would hit it three times or something like that. These are just settings for what like the impulse and spawn location, and then you can indicate the respawn time here. If you set 0, 0, then it will not respawn. But you can indicate like a random spawn time, which is 5 to 10. And then of course you have the interact montage. You can indicate a montage to play while interacting with the object. Also, we have required items. So like you have to have a certain item in your inventory to interact. But I think I didn't expose it. It should be a required item to interact. I think you just need to expose it here, like that, and now you should have access to it. I might fix this in a future. Like you might already have it in a future update, but yeah. So required item like that. If you need an axe, for example, like that, so you need an axe in your inventory in order to interact with this, then you could do that there. Yeah. So the rest is pretty straightforward. Yeah, it's just settings essentially. So the loot container is you indicate the columns and row here. Same for the interact montage. And then the container items, you can indicate them right here. So same principle. You can just do spawn chance. You want to do the hammer, and then you want to indicate the source, which would be the category. That would be like weapons. So this hammer is on weapons, so you would indicate it there. And the rest for this. So spawn chance 100% will always be there. Same for all the loot containers. For crafting, same thing. It's just a matter of settings. So this guy has the crafting widget component, and that's where you indicate the available craft items. Like you would just simply indicate the item ID, and what category, and the inventory data asset. You can also indicate a custom image. And for crafting, if I go to data asset again, so DA inventory, let's say this weapon, axe. In order to craft this guy, you need to go to crafting, and then you can do count how much you get, how long it takes, and the materials needed. It needs material one, and material. So material one and three. It needs 10 of material one and 10 of material three. And obviously these are exists in here. Materials, crafting right there. Material one, like that. So that's where you would indicate it, like here. You simply indicate the ID, and the settings are already um, set up in the data asset. And same for vendors. Vendors also the same thing. You select the vendor, and then you go to the vendor items, and you can like, okay, this guy sells an axe. Also, like for crafting, you can make it so like you can roll random stats. So you simply want to select the crafting actor, and then you have roll random stats. So when you craft something, you can get random stats. So based on the data asset inventory data that we seen earlier. Same for vendors. The vendors also you can just indicate the vendor name and vendor item. So necklace in the jewelry category. The price can be indicated here. So price to there. You can indicate a custom image, and also you can either use the full inventory, like the jigsaw style, or the normal like layout that we have currently. You could also randomize stats when you buy something. You can get like different stats, and you can control the columns and rows if it's a full inventory. Now, let's go ahead and talk about Minimap. So the Minimap, what you need to do is first of all, um, just go to the Minimap. It's pretty simple to set up. First of all, before we do the Minimap, anything can be added to the Minimap. All you need is, for example, there's this harvesting thing. All you need here is the interface called interact interface, and then if you just look for a Minimap here, we have this function called, well, since this is a child, we're not going to see it there. An item, in order for an item to be added to the Minimap, it needs the interact interface, which most my items do. But if you have a new item, you can do that. Like a new item, when I say a new item, like outside of the ARPG template. But most items here do have the interact interface. So all you need to do here is just handle the can add to minimap, return true, what texture, color, size, track rotation, and the name. And that's it. That's all you need for an item to be added to the minimap. And then now the minimap itself. If I just go to the folder here, minimap. So what you need here is you need to go to the minimap texture capture, if I can spell there. You need to drag the minimap scene cap there. You want to try to get it. I mean, the Z doesn't really matter because it captures orthographic. But this is the render target that it uses. Now we're not going to use a render target because that's used for real time. We're not going to use that for the minimap. We're actually going to generate a static texture because that's better for performance. You don't want the scene capture to be running at all. You just want a static texture and be done. So right now it's not capturing. You actually need to click here, capture snap. Once again, I can't spell there. So once you do that, you sometimes you have to hover over the texture, the render target to update. But as you can see there, we're trying to. It's already like capturing something. So I would have to move it like around there and then click capture again, hover over it. So this seems fine. So the main thing here is that you want to capture slightly more than your area because you want to avoid UV stretching. So right here I have a solid black color around the border, which is perfect. So that will work well. So I think this is good enough, right? You could control the zoom if you need to zoom more. You could do it from here, the ortho width. So if I reduce that a little bit, I could do 10,000, for example, and then capture. And as you can see now, it's not enough, right? I'm only capturing a little bit. I still need more. But generally speaking, you just one more than you need. So I would go for 20,000. Let's give that a try. That's good enough. Right. So once you do that, is two important things. First of all, you want to remember the location because It's not at the center. So you want to remember this location. So you want to just copy it. So while this is in the world, I would just right click copy, then go to the minimap. So BP minimap like this. If I go to the in-game widget, the minimap is over here. So this is using BP minimap, and that's what you need to modify. So BP minimap, right? It's in minimap. It's just the folder here. So minimap, you also have the overview map, same thing, same settings. So BP underscore minimap, open that, make sure it's the BP minimap, select the BP minimap W there, and go to the settings. Then right here, you have map width, which is the ortho width that we have in the scene there. But first thing, we need to paste the location that we just got from the scene capture. Right, so we're done with that. We need the ortho width, which is right here, 20,000, which is right here, 20,000. So I'm gonna copy that there. So now that we just did that, it is capturing things that you might not need. So as you can see, it's actually capturing a lot of things that I don't need, like the AI. So that's where you would go into your outliner. So you could do this two ways. You can go to the outliner right here. So I already have them organized here in folders. So what you want to do here is just hide the folder. As you can see, it hides everything. I still have these not on that folder. There you go. So I just went ahead and added the rest of the folders and I just simply hid them. So now I only see this. I seal them out, but it's fine. You get the idea for the example. So go ahead and select the scene capture and go to details here and just click capture. As you can see, I already like eliminated most of it. You can also select if you want to increase the resolution, feel free, but I wouldn't really go over 2K. But you could increase it if you need to. But yeah, so once you capture your texture, you can then right click on the render target. Make sure you click capture here to update the scene. Then you want to right click on this, the render target, and then you can create a static texture. As you can see there, that's our static texture. So T underscore minimum RT underscore texty. This is actually a static texture. So this is very important. Once you're done, you don't need the scene capture in your world. You can actually delete it. So this render target is actually not used. Okay. It's very important. We're using a static texture. So now you select the static texture that we just generated. Then we go back to the BP underscore minimap and then you indicate that texture here. Texture underscore like text 3 there. And with the settings correct, 20,000 there. That's the offset, the location. You can play around the zoom. So if I play, it should be accurate. Yeah. But yeah, so final thing is retargeting. I already have a assets, mannequin, and retargeting. So these are the eye care retargeters for 4 to 5 and 5 to 4. If you need to retarget animations between UE5, UE4, or other UE5, UE4 based rigs, feel free to use these. So yeah, that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. You can also join our Discord. A link in the product description. But yeah, if you have any questions, leave them below or in our Discord. But yeah, so until the next time, stay safe and see you later. Goodbye.